One of the coolest encounters that I ever had with a bird came about because I put up a birdhouse. In my yard, there are a lot of ponderosa pines, and I put up a bluebird house on one of these, and while I was doing it, the ruckus disturbed a great horned owl that was sitting on a nest in that tree. I had not realized that there was a nest there before, and I didn't even see the owl fly away. But when the owl came back, as I was leaving, a hawk dive bombed the owl, and the resulting ruckus made me turn around and look, and later I found the nest. A month or so after that, my daughter came running into the house and said, "Dad, quick, get your camera." And when I went out there, she had found a great horned owl chick that was just learning to fly. And it was so neat watching it fly along, and you'll enjoy seeing this picture of it. Years before that, I had been at the San Diego Wild Animal Park, and as part of their program, they let a great horned owl fly over the crowd. It actually flew right over my head, and I could not hear a sound. The amazing feathers that God designed for this bird makes it so that it can fly silently, and that helps it hear where its prey is. In the darkest night, it can hear exactly where it needs to go to get its meal. It reminds me of the Bible verse, "Be still and know that I am God." In the stillness of this bird's flight, we can see another sign that God has provided for his creation. One of the best ways to get a good bird photo is to go where there is frequent proximity between birds and people. That way the birds have become accustomed to the people and don't really need to be afraid of them. I got this photo of a least sandpiper in just such a location. It was on the south shore of Soap Lake in central Washington. And as I was walking along the beach, this tiny bird just kept pace with me walking along, and every so often it would tip its head and look up at me, but then really wasn't worried that I was there. In any other situation, it would have flown when I got within 50 feet of it. But in this situation, I was 8 to 10 feet away from it, and it wasn't overly concerned at all. These tiny birds, although they are tiny, they're not insignificant. They are very powerful flyers and will go on long migration flights. It reminds me of the fact that God is no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter your size, your intelligence, your strength, your agility. All it matters to him is that you're willing to work with him and for him. As Paul said, "When I am weak, then I am strong." One of the things I've always enjoyed about some birds is their ability to mimic. At that same show at the San Diego Wild Animal Park, they had a yellow-naped Amazon named Pedro. This little guy could not only speak and sing, but it did it on cue so that you could tell it was highly intelligent, and it actually seemed to understand the language at some point. There are other birds that are good mimics as well. Most of the crows family and mynah birds you've probably heard of, but the one that seems to have the best ability for mimicry is a bird in Australia called the lyrebird. These birds can even imitate the sound of a chainsaw or the clicking of a camera shutter and many other sounds that you would normally associate with human activity. This bird gives a perfect mimicry to it. The question then arises, do birds really have a language? Some birds don't seem to have any language, but others have been studied and found to have a significant vocabulary and a way of communicating with each other. One such bird is the common crane found in Europe, and these birds will migrate south over the Himalaya mountains to their wintering grounds. So naturally it's important to do that in the safest possible way. Scientists found that these birds actually are able to discuss migration patterns. They're able to discuss the weather, the timing when they should leave, and really have a complex social language, so that when they do finally take off to migrate south, they all have the same idea of where they're headed, how they're going to get there, and the best timing. It seems that whenever it's possible that God will have some way of communicating with his creation. These birds are a good example that if we can understand them, certainly God does. When you think about migrating birds, you often would wonder why they would do such a thing. And some of the birds, in fact, will migrate far to the north into the Arctic, and on a superficial level, you would wonder why they would go there in the first place. Well, a good hint of that is found in my grandmother's garden. She and my grandpa migrated to Alaska in 1930 and homesteaded on a piece of property on Lake Aleknagik, a little ways from Dillingham. And my grandmother was a gardener. She would grow huge cabbages in a place where you wouldn't think gardening was a real feasibility. However, in the summer in the far north, there is much more sunlight for hours of the day, and it is only night for a short time, if at all. Because of that, there is abundant, not only vegetation food supply, but also insects, fish, other invertebrates. So the birds that do fly that far north have an abundant food supply. And furthermore, they have fewer predators to disturb their nest. And it is just because of that that we see some amazing things happening in the natural world as far as migration. The champion for migrating is the Arctic tern. It actually migrates from the far north, near the North Pole, to the tip of South America. It does that flight every year and does so safely. A few years back, my wife and I decided to go to Hawaii for our anniversary, and I was especially interested in going to the island of Kauai, as there were two birds there that I wanted to photograph. The Laysan albatross, if you go to the Kilauea Lighthouse on the North Shore, you can get tremendous close-up views of this bird as it comes up near the cliff and will fly past within probably 15 or 20 feet. And these are impressive birds with a 7-foot wingspan and just effortless flight. It's just fun to watch them. These birds are champion flyers. It's been found that the energy that they have to use to fly is barely more than they would use just standing on the ground. They are experts at catching the little pressure of the wind in front of the ocean waves, and they'll just glide along for miles without flapping their wings at all. One female had a satellite tracker put on her, and it was found that she flew all the way from Kauai to off the coast of Alaska just to get food to feed her chick. Their favorite food is a small squid, and they are especially plentiful in that place. But it took her a week round trip to fly there, fill up with as much squid as she could carry, and then fly back. So you can imagine that these chicks will have at least one of the parents gone for a week at a time. And it's amazing that God has made these birds so that they can fly so far just to get the groceries. And it's further amazing that the young, when they learn to fly, will soon leave the land, and they won't return to land or even within the sight of land for 3 to 5 years, until they have grown enough where they start thinking about finding a mate. Then they will come back and often land within a few hundred feet of where they took off. Think about the amazing ability that God has put in these birds, that he can lead them back to the same place where they left the land, even though they haven't even seen any land for 3 to 5 years. There was another bird there that I wanted to photograph for a similar reason, and they have an even more amazing story, because these Pacific golden plovers will migrate from a nest in Alaska and also fly to Kauai, with one major difference. The adults of these birds fly separately from the babies. They will eat enough to survive that flight about 2 weeks before any of the young are big enough to fly that far. So as soon as they're ready, they just take off and leave the babies behind. When the babies have eaten enough to get fat enough, they will take off as well. And the interesting thing is that these young do not have enough food to make the journey on their own. They have to rely on a group of birds flying to the same place, and they will take turns being the lead bird. The one out in front has the job of forging into the wind first, and the ones behind have a little bit of a break, and it's easier to fly behind another bird, so they will take turns at the lead position. These baby birds have never been to Kauai before, and yet they will land within 100 feet or so of where their parents did. That is just an amazing way that God has made it so that he can lead them to the very place they need to go. But the absolute champion for a land bird is the bar-tailed godwit. These birds nest in much the same area as the Pacific golden plover, but they actually fly past Hawaii without even slowing down. They fly all the way to New Zealand or Tasmania, and scientists put a tracker on one bird with a band that said B6 on it, And B6 flew nonstop from just south of Nome, Alaska, all the way to Tasmania. It took 11 days, and this bird landed safely after 11 days flying nonstop at sea. These are land birds, and so if they did land in the water, they don't have webbed feet or anything to get them back into a flying position. So if they are not able to stay in the air, they're done for. But it's not just the flight. God has made these birds so that they are able to become a little ball of fat. They eat so much that their skin is bulging with fat, and they need so much fat for this trip that the internal organs of the bird shrink down almost to nothing, so that by the time they leave, about all of their weight is in fat, heart, flight muscle, brain, and feathers. So God really did a miracle to make these birds not only fly that far, but have that ability to follow his guidance to where they need to go. Unlike the Pacific golden plover, many of the young fly with the adults, but there are other groups that don't have any adult in them. So in that way, they have a similar ability to fly exactly where the parents did without any adult to lead them. Flying in itself is amazing. You've probably seen groups of starlings that just fill the sky and then move like they were all connected, so that they will swirl around and form a cloud, and not one of them seems to be out of place. This is called murmuration, and it is really an astounding thing to watch. But every bird that flies has some unique abilities. You can think of the hummingbird, for instance, and one that I saw in southern Florida in Key West really amazed me. I was photographing it with a camera that could take 7 photos a second, and in one photo the bird was just flying along with the head straight ahead, and the very next frame, 1/7 of a second later, the bird had its head twisted completely sideways and was staring down into the water. I know if I was trying to fly and I twisted my head that fast, I'd be totally out of control with my flight. But this bird didn't seem to faze it at all. God really outdid himself when he created birds. And I can't wait to be in heaven, not only to have these birds as my good close friends that aren't afraid of me, but certainly possibly to be able to fly along with them